Hey guys, welcome to YouTube. In this video, we will be building a digital clock using JavaScript. It would be just a basic digital clock that would show the time in 24-hour format. So without further ado, let's start. So first of all, I open my text editor. For my case, I am using VS Code editor. You can use anything that you want. Let's create a file and save it as clock.html. And so let's create the basic structure for our HTML document. For that we will say HTML, and inside this HTML we will say head, and inside the head we will be putting our CSS. So for that we will say style. Here we are gonna putting our CSS code, and under the head tag we will say body, where we will be writing our actual HTML code for the HTML element. And for the JavaScript we will say script. Inside these script tags we'll be writing our code for the JavaScript. So inside the body we will create a div with the class of container, and inside this div we'll create a h1. So this h1 heading tag will show the time of this clock. So for the time being, let's put a text here. Let's call it clock and save it. Let's open it in the browser. So yeah, it's working fine. So let's do some styling for this HTML document. So for that, in the style tag we'll select the container class and give it margin auto. So let's change the background of all HTML document. So for that we'll say body and background to the hash 202934. So now we want the clock content to be in the center. So for that we'll say text align to the center. So now let's select the h1 tag itself and change the color to the hash EA5C4E, and let's give it a border to the 5 pixel solid. And now as you can see, is border of the clock is taking the full width of the container. We don't want that. So for that we'll say the display property to the inline block, and give it some padding. From the top we will give it 20 pixel, and from the right and left we will give it the 40 pixel, and we'll increase the font size of the clock. For that, font size to the 100 pixel, and margin top to the 300 pixel. So I think now it is looking nice. So So now for the JavaScript, inside the script tag we'll select the h1 tag and say const clock to the document dot get by id to the clock, and so give the id clock to the h1 and then here we'll create a function and call it get clock time, and inside the function we'll create a variable for the date object, and we'll say date is equal to new date, and for the hours we'll say hh to the date dot get hours, and for the minutes we'll say to the date get minutes, and for the second we'll say ss to the date dot get seconds, and let's change the clock display with these variables. So for that we'll say clock dot text content is equal to hh plus colon plus plus colon plus ss, and so let's call this function. So now it's working fine, but we want it to be updated automatically in each second. For that we will call the set timeout method inside this function and call this function itself into it, and we'll say get clock time, and we'll pass the time 1000 millisecond, which is equal to 1 second, and save it. Let's check it. Oh yeah, it's working fine. But as you can see, for the single digit number it should append a 0 before the actual number. So for that we will create a function and call it as append 0, and parameter value, and inside this function we will check if value is less than to the 10, we will append 0 to the value 0 plus value and return this value, and here we'll call this function with the parameter of date get hours, append 0 and date dot get hours. Now it should work fine. Oh yes, it's working fine. So that's it. Please like this video, hit the subscribe button and share this video